The ripple effects of the sudden death of Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi are just beginning to spread across a very unstable Middle East. I'm Gadi Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. And a shocking turn of events in the Middle East this weekend after Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi was killed in a helicopter crash on Sunday. Now, right now, Iranian state media is saying that the crash was caused by a, quote, technical failure, but they have not gone into any more detail. Now, it took hours for search and rescue teams to reach that crash site because of thick fog covering the area. Raisi was returning with a group of government officials from Iran's border with Azerbaijan yesterday when the helicopter crashed in the mountains, and he was seen with the president of Azerbaijan hours before that crash. Now, the country's foreign minister was also killed, along with 7 other people. NBC's Keir Simmons has more on what this means for the current Iranian government.
Tonight, the wreckage of the fiery crash that killed Iran's president and its foreign minister in a region already rocked by instability and war. TV crews reaching the remote scene today. The hardline leader of America's long-standing adversary dead suddenly, and it seems by accident. Today in the streets of Tehran, men openly wept for President Raisi, seen as a potential successor to Iran's aging supreme leader. At some Iranian embassies in the West, opponents celebrated. The US tonight says there are no signs of outside interference and saying Iran's government reached out for help during the rescue effort.
Ultimately, largely for logistical reasons, we weren't able to provide that assistance.
Raisi described today as a friend by fellow presidents Putin and Xi. Hamas sending its sympathies. Since the October 7th terror attacks, Iran's proxies have launched multiple offensives, escalating the tension in the region. And tonight from Tehran, an advisor to the government telling NBC News not to expect policy changes despite the unexpected death.
This is a big loss, but when we're talking about the general direction of the state, it goes beyond any individual.
Lester Holt sat down with Raisi last year in what was among his last interviews with Western media. Raisi telling Lester the billions of dollars unfrozen during a deal with the US in exchange for 5 American prisoners were Tehran's to use as it wanted.
Do you believe you have the right to use that money in any way that you see fit?
This money belongs to the Islamic Republic of Iran, and naturally, we will decide, the Islamic Republic of Iran will decide to spend it wherever we need it.
Raisi crushed internal dissent, including a wave of demonstrations for women's rights.
Some of the worst human rights abuses occurred during his tenure as president, especially the human rights abuses against the women and girls of Iran. That said, we regret any loss of life.
Funerals will begin tomorrow. Elections are set to take place at the end of June. Only then will America know which Iranian president it will face in the years to come.
Keir, thank you. And let's bring in Jonathan Panikoff of the Atlantic Council to help break down a little bit more of this. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us. What does Raisi's death mean for Iran and the Middle East, and who is next in line here?
Great to be with you this evening. Look, I think in the immediate, it probably actually doesn't change that much when it comes to Iran's domestic policy or Iranian foreign policy. The reality is that in Iran, the president is not the top position. The supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, it holds ultimately all of the power in the end. Everything that Raisi would do had to be checked with the supreme leader. And so it doesn't change much. As terms of who's next, I think that's a bit of the million-dollar question. There's a lot of names floating around. I think probably the most prominent right now is the Speaker of the Majlis, the Speaker of the Parliament, Mohammad Khalibaf. But whether or not he's ultimately succeeds in the elections that'll be held in about 50 days, the one thing we know for sure is that Iranian policy isn't likely to alter much from where it is today.
And Raisi, he was known as the Butcher of Tehran for allegedly overseeing the execution of thousands of political prisoners. Here's what one former Iranian political prisoner had to say today from London. Take a listen.
people, they've been waiting for this moment for a long time, especially the mothers and the families of those people. They've been massacred. I think for them, it's very much joyful news.
So there's the external view of Iran. There's the internal view of Iran. I got to ask, what was Raisi's legacy there?
Yeah, I think that clip reflects how a lot of folks feel, especially anybody who has close associations with the end of the Iran-Iraq War, where he oversaw the death panels and ultimately sent thousands of political prisoners to their death without legitimate due process of any meaningful sort. And so you have a lot of people, and you saw this on social media as well, who are rejoicing, frankly. And I think you'll have a lot of the more urban elites in Iran, a lot of the middle class happy that this is a man who oversaw the Masa Amini protests and then the crackdown on them. At the same time, you have a number of folks who believe in the revolution and are fundamentally conservative, especially in more rural parts of Iran. And so you're going to have a population that's ultimately mixed, and so will his legacy be at the end of the day.
And there's so many people that are wondering about this in particular today. Iranian state media today is saying that the crash was caused by a technical failure, not giving very many details there. Can we believe that? I'm asking because it seems like a lot of countries would be very interested in some sort of covert possible assassination here. Is that possible, or are we sure that this was an accident?
I don't know that we're sure, but I think it's probably quite likely that it was really an accident. Iran's fleet of helicopters and airplanes, both civilian and military, are among the oldest in the world. The helicopters, the model that was being used for the president to transport him, was built by Bell between 1969 and 1998. In other words, it's been 26 years since the last model came off the line, and that's even if they had the most recent ones. Iran, because of sanctions, has a tremendous difficulty sourcing parts. They usually have to get them on the black market from Russia or China. And so all that would lead me to conclude that it probably was indeed an accident.
Yeah, very simple explanation there. Jonathan, we appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. And the other big story developing in the Middle East, prosecutors at the world's top criminal court are planning on issuing arrest warrants for alleged war crimes for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the leader of Hamas. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez is in Tel Aviv with the latest.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today furiously denouncing the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, who is accusing him of war crimes and seeking a warrant for his arrest. The prosecutor also looking to arrest Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, as well as the three top leaders of Hamas's military and political wings. The prosecutor accusing Israel of deliberately starving Palestinian civilians in Gaza by choking off supplies of food, and also of, in some cases, deliberately targeting civilian populations. Prime Minister Netanyahu, in a statement, saying, "I reject with disgust the Hague prosecutor's comparison between democratic Israel and the mass murderers of Hamas. This is a complete distortion of reality." President Biden calling the prosecutor's allegations outrageous and saying the United States will not accept any comparison between Israel and Hamas. Now, the prosecutor of the ICC also accusing senior Hamas leaders of atrocities on October 7th and beyond, including murder, torture, rape, and hostage taking. The Israeli government says there are still 128 hostages, living and dead, being held by Hamas inside of Gaza. In a statement tonight, Hamas is applauding the ICC prosecutor's decision to move against Israeli leaders, but is denying that they committed war crimes themselves. In terms of the legal process here, it is now up to a three-judge panel at the ICC to decide whether to issue these arrest warrants or not. If they do, Prime Minister Netanyahu unlikely to face immediate arrest, but it becomes very risky for him to travel to any of the 124 countries that are signatories to the court. That includes most nations in Western Europe. And the Prime Minister would be joining an unwelcome club alongside Vladimir Putin of world leaders accused of crimes against humanity. Back to you.
Raf Sanchez, thank you. And don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. Up next, more testimony today from Donald Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen. NBC's Dasha Burns will have more on what went down in court during the former president's hush money trial. Plus, former child star Drake Bell breaks his silence following that shocking docu-series Quiet on the Set. He sat down to talk to our own Kate Snow, and you're not going to miss what he wanted to say. And later this hour, we're going to talk to a scientist who says the idea of gravity is kind of up in the air. Get ready to have your mind blown with this conversation in tonight's Future of Everything.
Chad, you're saying gravity might not exist as a fundamental thing in the universe?
I'm saying gravity might not exist as a fundamental thing in the universe.
Wow. Hey, welcome back. At least 17 states are in the path of a potential tornado outbreak tonight. More on that in just a moment. But first, here's some other stories we're watching. Rudy Giuliani was served with an indictment by Arizona's Attorney General while at his birthday party. And this happened on Friday while Giuliani was celebrating in Florida, and it's related to his connection with the alleged conspiracy to overturn the 2020 election results in that state. And a bunch of others have been indicted in the fake electors case, and they're all further along in their legal proceedings. And the Dali container ship was finally removed today. That's 8 weeks after it crashed into Baltimore Key Bridge. You can see it there moving with crews, eventually taking it to a local port. It was an extremely complex process to get it floating again, including an explosion last week to remove some of the bridge parts. And Disneyland's characters and parade performers unionized in California. Now, the voting wrapped up Saturday, and it passed by a pretty wide margin. Now, the Actors Equity Association will represent the roughly 1,700 workers. And OpenAI is pausing one of its new artificial voices following some claims that it actually sounded a little bit like Scarlett Johansson's voice. Now, some people online were comparing it to the role in that sci-fi movie, Her, that Scarlett Johansson played. OpenAI allows users to talk to ChatGPT with a range of voices, and they say they're now figuring out how that voice was selected. And astronaut Ed Dwight is officially the oldest person ever in space. The 90-year-old lifted off from Blue Origin's latest mission on Sunday, and it was a long time coming. He was actually America's first black astronaut candidate, but never actually made it into orbit. But 60 years later, he called the roughly 10-minute flight a life-changing experience. And today, the prosecution rested their case in the Donald Trump hush money trial, but not before grilling Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen, who took the stand for a fourth time today. Now, lawyers once again gunning after Cohen's credibility as a key witness, getting him to admit that he stole from the Trump organization and that he has a financial interest in the outcome of Trump's case. And that wasn't even the most fiery part of the day. Witness testimony and defense witnesses, and the defense witness in particular, former legal advisor to Cohen, Robert Costello, he butted heads with the judge who cleared the courtroom to go off on Costello for giving him side-eye and attitude over objections in his testimony. And this all comes as a judge decided to push back closing arguments till after Memorial Day instead of doing it tomorrow. So with a couple more days left in this trial, after all, will Trump take the stand? That is a question that still remains to be answered. And NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns has more.
Gadi, a long day in court today, something that our folks inside the courtroom said the jurors may have been feeling. They described jurors sort of less engaged today than they have been in the past, shifting around in their seats, head in hands, eyes closed at times. And that's because this was a day when the defense was again cross-examining Michael Cohen, going back again to pointing out the times that he's been inconsistent with the truth, times that he has lied. One major moment today, getting Michael Cohen to admit that he stole money from the Trump organization, opening the door to painting him not only as an unreliable narrator, a liar, but also a thief. Another big point today goes back to something we left off on last week, which is that phone call. The phone call between Michael Cohen and Trump's body man, Keith Schiller, in October of 2016, when Cohen says he talked to Schiller and talked to Trump about Stormy Daniels, about that hush money payment. The defense saying, no, you had text messages with Keith Schiller about not Stormy Daniels, but a 14-year-old who was harassing you, and you wanted Schiller to do something about that. And that's what the phone call was about. So Cohen and the defense, the prosecution and the defense disputing what happened in that phone call. The prosecution today trying to sort of rehabilitate Cohen, rehabilitate that story, and introduced into evidence after a debate about this video, a photo from C-SPAN of Trump and Schiller together just moments before that phone call, essentially saying, look, they were together. He could have plausibly talked to Trump. The reason that this is important, Gadi, and some jurors' eyes may have been glazing over after all of this back and forth, but the reason this is key is because Cohen is really the linchpin that is tying all of what has been talked about, all of the documentary evidence that has been entered in about those hush money payments, the bank accounts, the checks, all of that, tying the hush money payments to former President Trump, to his intent, to his directing Cohen, as Cohen alleges. He is the guy that can connect those dots back to the former president, what he knew and how he acted, and ultimately give that directly to the jury, which is why his credibility is absolutely so central. And at the end of the day today, Todd Blanche, Trump's defense attorney, asked for the case to be dismissed on the grounds that he believes Cohen's testimony is so unreliable, that he's a known liar. The judge asked, do you believe that he could fool 12 jurors? That's the question, whether or not the judge is going to buy that. He hasn't said one way or another yet. We pick back up tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. with more testimony from Robert Costello, who got admonished in court today by the judge because he had a little sass, a little attitude in the first moments there of his testimony. We pick back up tomorrow morning, and TBD what we're going to see over the next couple of days in trial. We don't know what other witnesses the defense may or may not call. The big question still remaining, will former President Trump himself testify in his own defense? Gadi?
Now, people in Texas are still picking up the pieces after severe storms hit throughout that state. You can see video here showing the damage as heavy winds also left thousands without power, and that is really not good because they are also dealing with some triple-digit temperatures. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson, who's in Houston with the latest. Priscilla, we've got power outages and then 3 days of extreme heat coming this week, right? How dangerous of a combination is that?
Yeah, Gadi, and important to note that this is the 4th day that these people are going on without power. Right now, that number is looking at around 170,000 people across the Houston area who don't have that power. And I'll tell you that out here right now, it's about 90 degrees, and it has been in the high 80s and the 90s since this weekend, and that is expected to continue throughout the week. So certainly a very big concern. I spoke to one couple that was staying at a cooling center because they were concerned about their health in this heat, and I asked her what it was like in her house right now, and she said it's like opening an oven that's set to 350 degrees and just having that heat hit you in the face. So that is some of the kinds of issues that folks here are dealing with. But we have spoken to Centerpoint Energy, and they tell us that they hope to have everyone's power restored by end of day Wednesday. Gadi?
Yeah, fingers crossed. And on top of this already dangerous situation, we've got more storms on the way, right? How are people preparing for that? I mean, I see behind you, you've got a tarp on the roof there, but a lot of that damage is from winds, and those winds were like hurricane-force wind strength. What's going to happen if we see some storms that are half as strong as what we saw last week?
Yeah, so that tarp is on the roof because this tree was on the roof on Thursday night, and there was a woman, Kathleen, who was actually inside that house when that tree fell. But the good news for people in Texas is that we aren't, heat is really going to be the big issue here in Houston. We know that those storms are going to stretch, impacting about 16 million tonight alone. From the Central Plains to the Midwest, they're looking at damaging winds, hail, and possible tornadoes. But over the next 3 days across the country, there is going to be a severe weather threat. So we are just talking about these continued spring storms that are showing no signs of letting up. Gadi?
And Priscilla, we've got a lot of schools that were closed today because of the heat. What else is closing, and what's being done to protect like the most vulnerable populations there?
Yeah, there were city courts that were closed, and there were even some schools that opened this morning and had to dismiss early because the air conditioning in them was not working. So there's still a lot of issues there, but I will tell you that the city and the county have opened up cooling centers that people can go to. They have also done drives for ice and water and things like that to help keep folks cool. But we were at one of those sites earlier. It was actually a school district site that was distributing food to students and families, and they had enough food for 500 families, and they ran out in less than 2 hours. We've been to 2 drives today, and the line was just wrapped around the block. So certainly there's a lot of need, especially for folks who lost power and had food that spoiled, and now they're trying to figure out how they're going to eat for the next couple of days as they're working to get back on their feet. Gadi?
We're thinking about them and also thinking about you, Priscilla. I know it's been a hot day and you've been out in that heat all day. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's not just Texas. Other parts of the country are dealing with bad weather as well. At least 13 tornadoes were reported across Kansas, Colorado, and Oklahoma yesterday alone. And NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns is tracking it all.
Gadi, unfortunately, it's going to be another violent week of severe storms. It looks like the worst is going to be on Tuesday, and then we're still going to have some strong storms either tonight and on Wednesday. But Tuesday looks like the day if we get any really strong tornadoes. I'll show you exactly where in a second. So as we're going through this evening, we have been watching one storm exiting. This brought some squally weather to Lake Michigan, now going through Michigan. Maybe some wind damage, possibly some hail with that. And now our new storm, the one that's going to plague us tonight and all day tomorrow, is now coming through the Rockies. We already have a tornado watch and a severe thunderstorm watch up for that, especially that northeast corner there of Colorado. So here's the area at risk through the rest of this evening. We're watching these storms through Michigan now. This is where the storms are going to explode this evening and go right through the night. This area in the orangish color here, that's the enhanced risk. That's where we expect the most widespread large hail and wind damage. There could be a couple of isolated tornadoes in this region too. And then during the night, this will all track eventually into Iowa. So this is going to be waking people up. A lot of lightning, hail, gusty, strong winds right through the evening. This hashed area here, that's where we could see the winds in excess of hurricane strength, possibly. Hope not, but if that happens, you have to be prepared to be without power. Then tomorrow, you get to see this bullseye on the map here. The yellow, that's the slight risk. Then we get the enhanced risk, and this red is what we call level 4 out of 5. That's going to be the moderate risk. The only thing higher than that is a high risk, and it doesn't look like we're going to get to that, but it does look like we have a chance for some strong tornadoes. Definitely large hail. We will see a line of storms going through this entire region during the day tomorrow, and if we get tornadoes, they would likely occur in this red area where we have the hatch. That's where we could even see strong tornadoes, and those are the ones that do significant damage and tend to be the deadliest. So that's from Ames to Des Moines, to northern Missouri through Kirksville, Iowa City, the Quad Cities up here to Dubuque and into Madison, and all the way up to La Crosse even. That's the area that from about 3 p.m. tomorrow to about 8 p.m., that's where we're going to be tracking these storms. I pause this at 8 p.m. tomorrow, and you can see those storms by then will have cleared out of Iowa, will have cleared northern Missouri, and heading into Wisconsin and areas of Illinois. For Chicago, it looks like wind damage is your biggest threat. And then this whole line of storms will redevelop as we go throughout the day on Wednesday. So we have a large area, even on Wednesday, from Dallas all the way back up here to Cleveland. Wind damage, isolated tornadoes possible. And on top of all of this isn't even enough, Gadi. With all the rainfall, we have flood watches that erupt from Minnesota all the way back down through areas of Iowa and into Nebraska. Very busy next 48 hours. I'm sure we'll be talking about these storms tomorrow at this time.
Very busy indeed, Bill. Thank you. Coming up, a man stole, then crashed a police car with an officer inside. We've got those details. But first, you gotta see this. What in the air, bud, is this? Who let all these furry little surfers rip some waves over the weekend in Spain? Well, it's the annual dog surfing competition to help promote dog adoptions and discourage pet abandonment. All in good fun to show off your special bond with your pooch. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Former child star Drake Bell talks to NBC's Kate Snow in an exclusive interview in a minute. But first, here are some of the stories happening out west that we're following right now. A man stole a cop car with a cop still inside and then crashed it in downtown Los Angeles. Now, the officer was working security at those infamous graffiti towers when the man attacked her. She was ejected from the car at one point and 2 other people were hurt. Man eventually crashed a few blocks away at an intersection and was arrested right after. And hundreds of academic workers at UC Santa Cruz joined the picket line today over the handling of recent pro-Palestinian protests. They're claiming the free speech rights of peaceful demonstrators was violated, and the strike there could signal the first of many across University of California campuses. And rangers with Colorado Parks and Wildlife had kind of a tough time trying to get down this black bear from a neighborhood tree. They were no match for that stubborn bear who was sleeping after some food in the trash. It eventually climbed down, but then climbed up another tree, and that's when they used a drone to blast some music, and not just any music, specifically Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath to rock that bear out of the tree. The hours-long stakeout finally ended later that night when the bear did come down. Meanwhile, Sean Diddy Combs posted an apology video after the shocking video surfaced showing the music mogul beating, then dragging his then-girlfriend in 2016. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas has more on the growing fallout.
My behavior on that video is inexcusable.
Sean Diddy Combs now walking back his denial of domestic abuse in the wake of disturbing footage showing him violently attacking former girlfriend Cassie Ventura.
I take full responsibility for my actions in that video.
Combs posting an apology to his Instagram late yesterday.
When I sought out professional help, I had to go into therapy and go into rehab.
The surveillance footage, which was obtained by CNN, shows Combs chasing Ventura in the hallway of a Los Angeles hotel in 2016. Combs is seen grabbing Ventura by the neck and throwing her to the ground before repeatedly kicking her and dragging her down a hallway.
But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry.
Ventura's attorney slamming Combs' response that he was only compelled to apologize once his repeated denials were proven false shows his pathetic desperation, and no one will be swayed by his disingenuous words. New York City Mayor Eric Adams says he's weighing whether to rescind the New York native's key to the city.
We were probably sick to our stomach.
In March, federal agents raided Combs' properties in Los Angeles and Miami as part of an investigation into alleged sex trafficking.
Feds are investigating him. And so if they didn't have this video then, they certainly have it now, and they could utilize it as evidence for any underlying charges they may lodge against him.
Combs is already facing multiple civil lawsuits alleging abuse and sexual assault. Chloe Malas, NBC News, New York.
Chloe, thank you. And over in Louisiana, lawmakers there are considering a first-of-its-kind bill that would classify abortion pills as controlled substances, putting them in the same category as Xanax or Valium. And if this passes, anyone caught with the drugs without a valid prescription could face up to 10 years in prison. NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra has more.
Hey, Gadi. Well, it's here at the Capitol that lawmakers will be debating and eventually deciding whether or not these two specific pills, we're talking about mifepristone and misoprostol, will be classified as a controlled dangerous substance. And if that goes forward, this would be a first in the nation. This would be the first time that any state has done so in the country. And this would be added to the category with the likes of cocaine, of heroin. This was introduced by Senator Presley, who talked about how his sister was given an abortion pill drug without her consent, without her knowledge while she was pregnant, and then she gave birth to a child who had health defects as a result. And so what we have seen is fallout as a result from physicians. There's an open letter that's been signed by over 250 physicians who are expressing concern about this because, Gadi, as we know, these two drugs are most commonly associated with abortion pills. And we've reported on that before. But these physicians are pointing to other uses, other medical uses, and their concerns about now being put in difficult position and medical delays that could come as a result of this. And so we're going to be looking into this as this is discussed by lawmakers behind me. In terms of timing, we don't know exactly when that will happen. We know that this is scheduled to be debated tomorrow, so we'll see what comes of that. But in the greater context, it's important to remember to look at not just the state of Louisiana, which is a state that has a total abortion ban with no exceptions for rape, no exceptions for incest, but also within the rest of the country. Remember how much the abortion care access map has changed in the last 2 years, and even in the South specifically, even the state of Florida. We covered the abortion law changes very recently there at the start of May. And so we are looking at a region in the country that already has what people are calling an abortion care desert, desert, Gadi. So a lot of eyes on what we will be seeing here tomorrow out of Louisiana.
And we'll stay tuned for more of your reporting, Marissa. Thank you. And still to come, an attempted coup in the Congo left a whole bunch of people detained, including Americans. We've got those details, plus some other stories trending around the world. So stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. The story of Americans involved in a coup overseas is straight ahead, but right now let's take a quick look around the world. U.S. officials are saying the Biden administration was close to transferring 11 detainees out of Guantanamo Bay to a country in the Middle East last October, but the Israeli-Hamas war put a pause on their plans, and now 7 months later, the administration has not set a new date for the transfer, and the detainees are still at Guantanamo with no idea on when or if they'll get to leave. Officials are worried the stalled transfer could become a human rights issue, but they say the deal is under discussion and could still happen this year. And a court in London has ruled that WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has the right to appeal against his extradition to the United States. Dozens of protesters gathered today to show their support for him, who has faced a long legal battle. Assange, who has spent the last 5 years in a British high-security prison after spending 7 years in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. He's been indicted in the United States on charges of espionage over the posting of classified documents on WikiLeaks. And Taiwan's new president is calling out China, telling them to stop its threats. And in his inauguration speech, the 64-year-old doctor turned politician urged Beijing to choose dialogue over confrontation. Now, China is saying the speech sent dangerous signals about seeking independence. And a bright green fireball lit up the skies in Spain and Portugal over this weekend, and that fireball was actually a meteor, confirmed by the European Space Agency. They also said it wasn't likely that any of that meteor made it to the ground, but it did make for quite the impromptu fireworks show. Wow. And staying overseas, the Congolese army says it stopped a coup over the weekend, and they also say 3 Americans were involved. NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber has the latest.
Tonight, at least 6 people are dead and 50 detained after the military of the Democratic Republic of the Congo says it foiled a coup attempt. Video of the attack inside the presidential palace, verified by Reuters, was live streamed on Facebook early Sunday morning by the alleged leader of the failed coup, Christian Malanga. Malanga at one point standing next to a man that appears to be his American-born son, Marcel, an American flag visible on the younger Malanga's chest. The older Malanga said the Congolese military is tired of the president, a president Malanga said has messed up the country and must leave office. The president did not leave office. Within hours, Christian Malanga was dead, killed during a shootout with presidential palace guards, according to a spokesperson with the Congolese army.
Cette tentative.
They say 2 guards at the presidential palace and 3 other assailants were also killed. The Congolese military says the coup attempt involved 3 Americans, including one they identified as Malanga's son, Marcel, who, according to the AP, appears to be in this video being circulated online by the presidential palace. More footage circulated by the presidential palace shows several unidentified Congolese men being rounded up by soldiers.
It was a very bizarre attempt to take power. It's not clear what the objective was. It also indicates that the security services, the intelligence services, were very poorly organized. After all, they were able to attack and briefly control the presidential palace.
The U.S. Embassy issued a security alert on Sunday, and the American ambassador to DRC said in part, quote, "We will cooperate with the DRC authorities to the fullest extent as they investigate these criminal acts and hold accountable any U.S. citizen involved in criminal acts." The attempted coup is another black eye for the Congolese government. President Felix Tshisekedi was re-elected for a second term back in December, but opposition parties called the results a sham and demanded a rerun. The government dismissed allegations of fraud and ultimately rejected calls for a rerun of the elections.
Ellison Barber, thank you. And before we go, it is time for the future of everything. We've got an astrophysicist that might be flipping the script on gravity as a fundamental force in the universe. Jenna Levin is joining us next to explain her thinking, so stay tuned. And in the ever-evolving world of telepathy, yes, telepathy, it looks like at least one more person will soon be able to control a computer just by thinking about it, because the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the FDA is now giving Neuralink the go-ahead to implant a second patient this summer, despite some issues reported with the first one earlier this year. And this time they're planning on embedding the quarter-sized chip a little bit deeper into that human brain to prevent it from retracting, which is what happened to Noland Arbaugh, who a month after his surgery in January started noticing some issues with the signals that allowed him to control a mouse cursor using just his brain. But Arbaugh says Neuralink was able to fix the issue without doing surgery.
There's no reason to put me through another brain surgery if they could recover any sort of performance, which they were absolutely able to do. They worked around that and they found a way to make it better again. And now it's better than what it was before the thread retraction.
With just a software update, wild stuff. NBC News medical fellow Dr. Akshay Syal joins us now. Dr. Syal, so Neuralink is saying that they're going to embed those tiny wires deeper into the brain. I mean, that is such a complex surgery. How does that work?
It is, Gadi, and I think the best way to sort of understand this is if we could pull that image of the device up again, and really to simplify it here, Gadi, the device has a quarter-sized computer that's really extended by about 64 threads here. You can see each one's actually smaller than a human hair. And the quarter-sized computer that you see lies closer to the skull, and those threads or those little projections go into the brain. And what they said, Gadi, with the first patient, with Mr. Noland Arbaugh, you heard there, is that the brain shifted a little bit, and some of those threads got displaced. I think only about 15% of the threads that he had initially in the right place are actually in the right place now. So we're going ahead and we're hearing that Neuralink is about to try this in another patient, and one of the changes they're making in tandem with the FDA is actually putting those threads a little bit deeper, so less likely for them to get dislodged or displaced in the brain, Gadi.
That is wild. 15%, and they're still able to push software updates that make it work. They basically fix these issues through this system upgrade, but how do you upgrade, I don't know, the software that's interfacing with the brain?
Yeah, I think the best way to think of it is kind of like a smartphone, where you have the hardware or the iPhone and the software, iOS, that runs on it. If there's a problem in something going on, you can kind of troubleshoot, see, is it a hardware problem, is it a software problem? And sometimes you can fix one and make up for deficiencies in the other. And Gadi, that's essentially what they did. So what they found was that a lot of those threads weren't in the right place, so they tweaked the algorithm a little bit. I think the way it's being described is it made it a little bit more sensitive to activity of the cells in the brain. And by fixing it on the software side, they were able to make up for that deficiency on the hardware side. And you can see that he's able to demonstrate movement again, just like he was back when the chip was first implanted.
That's fascinating. And Neuralink is saying that they've had thousands of quadriplegics sign up for the registry to see if they could possibly be eligible. Less than 100 qualify right now. Why is that? What is the qualification for somebody to partake in something like this?
Yeah, so they've asked a lot of people to apply and build this sort of patient registry database. But, Gadi, whenever we're doing clinical trials, we hear about inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria. Essentially, there's certain things that if patients have some of these features, they're not allowed to be in the trial. And just looking at the Neuralink website, some of those things, if they had a pacemaker, for example, put in, or if they have a seizure disorder, if they have conditions where they have to get a lot of MRIs, they wouldn't be able to be a part of this. And that's what I think is going on, is that a lot of people are, meet the criteria for being either quadriplegic or paraplegic from, a spinal cord injury like a diving accident or ALS, a motor neuron disease. But because of some other things that they may have as well, they aren't able to be a part of this innovative trial.
And I know that Neuralink is hoping to implant 10 people by the end of this year. Do you think that that's possible? Does that seem realistic?
It does. The site that's been announced with the first patient, Mr. Arbaugh, is Barrow Neurological Institute in Arizona. I actually used to work there back in high school and college. They are one of the best in the country, if not the best, neurosurgery program. So the fact that they are leading this is, I think, going to make a lot more people feel comfortable about it, and a lot more people want to get involved. And you're seeing, Mass General Brigham at Harvard Medical School also launching a brain-computer interface program. So I think there's a lot of excitement behind this and a lot of respectable big-name players. So I do think it's reasonable, and I'm excited for what's ahead, Gadi.
Yeah, very exciting. Did you say you worked there in high school?
Yeah, in my former life, I wanted to be a brain surgeon, so.
Oh, my gosh. While you were there, I was working at Tasty Freeze. You and I are not the same. Dr. Sayal, thanks so much.
Anytime.
And growing up online, Gen Z is wired for connection, right? But at what cost? Because bombarded by influencers, opinions, and ads, kids these days are facing pressure to take public stances on some extremely complex issues. And new research is suggesting it is taking a big toll on mental health. And NBC's Mara Barrett reports.
I think I am depressed, anxious, ADHD, or a mix of all three, said every person in Gen Z.
Gen Z is the first generation to grow up completely online, and they're starting to feel it.
We had to learn how to grow up in this different world of social media. We didn't have the rules passed down to us, and we're actually making the rules.
Corey Jane is a Gen Z poet who blew up online for her relatable poems about being a Gen Zer.
So I sit and I scroll and I rot on repeat.
Handed us our first phones in middle school. We were raised by them.
So many people in Gen Z have been struggling with the ramifications of social media, like screen addiction and, a imbalance of dopamine when we're dependent on constant stimulation all the time.
50% of Gen Zers spend more than an hour on social media per day, according to research from the McKinsey Health Institute. But it's not just screen addiction. The social movement's being born and spread online. I spent the afternoon on campus at University of Colorado Boulder, where people born between 1997 and 2012 told me the ever-increasing, quote, pressure to post about movements like these weighs on them almost every day.
Like there's the whole cancel culture. You get in trouble for if you don't say anything, and then if you do, and people don't agree with you, it's either way, you can't win.
I feel like the anxiety is coming from people our own age, and
Gen Z's anxiety surrounding social media is triple the levels of people their parents' age.
We're all I feel impacting everyone, each other's mental health the way that we're getting impacted too. It's a vicious cycle.
McKinsey's researchers note a shortage in access to behavioral health providers. Because of that, Gen Zers instead are less likely to seek care. And when they do, they rely on emergency care or turn to more social media, like following therapists on TikTok or Instagram.
If we know that there is going to be some sort of use of social media, how do we find the right way to be making it a supportive experience?
To combat the negatives, experts recommend if you're scrolling, be active on your feed rather than passive to strengthen social bonds. Turn off notifications when you're not on the apps and have a purpose every time you log on rather than just pulling up Instagram when you have a free moment.
A drug in our pocket without instructions on how or when addiction comes to stop it.
For Corey, she's reframed how she views her presence on social media.
Social media itself is neutral. It's like a neutral force, and it's kind of the user that gets to determine if it's going to have a negative or positive impact on themselves. And I think the important thing to realize when you're trying to be okay, real life versus social media is that whatever is in front of you, that is what's tangible.
That focused separation, an essential step to regulate mental health and scroll safely. Mara Barrett, NBC News.
And if you get a chance to check out some of Corey's poetry, it is incredibly, incredibly powerful. Corey and Mara, thank you so much. Turning now to this, finally tonight, I've got a confession. Every so often, speaking of feeds, I come across this idea that I see on a podcast or Instagram or an article, and it is so different that my brain literally feels like it breaks. And that's exactly how it felt when I was minding my own business, scrolling through some feeds, and I saw this on Star Talk between Neil deGrasse Tyson and our friend and theoretical physicist Jana Levin talking about gravity. Take a listen.
Quantum gravity requires that space-time be quantized, but there might not be a theory of quantum gravity. We might look deeper and deeper, and instead of finding quantum bits of space-time, we will only find pure quantum mechanics with no gravity in it whatsoever. And that gravity emerges only out of the collective of tons and tons of these quantum interactions.
That's crazy.
So that just like water, it's it's crazy.
So the quantum interactions manifests as what we call gravity.
Right.
The way the ensemble of H2O
manifests as water.
Exactly.
And in the same way you would pull out a single molecule, you're not necessarily looking at water at that point.
Right.
The same thing with the Oh, my.
Janet, you tell me
you
that
can't pull
gravity...
out a quantum and say, is this gravity?
Right.
Is this space-time anymore?
Space-time anymore?
Exactly.
Janet, you're saying gravity might not exist as a fundamental thing in the universe?
I'm saying gravity might not exist as a fundamental thing in the universe.
Wow.
Gravity might not exist as a fundamental force. If your mind is reeling, don't worry. We know and we love Professor Janet Levin from her writing on her black hole survival guide. So we just called her up and we're like, Professor, we got to talk. Professor, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Now, I could pretend to understand all of what you just said before you dropped that huge bomb. And then afterwards, when you started talking about the embroidered quantum entangled analogy, but I don't. I did not follow it at all. I did hear you say something about room temperature as an analogy. So can you just break this down for us? What do you mean by gravity may not exist as a fundamental force?
Well, we try to understand the physical world on many levels. And right now we're at this kind of big macroscopic level where we're not seeing the individual atoms or molecules or what's going on at what we call the quantum level. And from this big macroscopic perspective, we have a really excellent description of gravity. We know how apples fall from the tree. We know how planets stay in orbit around the sun. And all of this is described originally. Newton described it very well. And then ultimately, as you're showing, Einstein described it as following the natural curves in space-time created by a heavy mass. So all of that works beautifully and it's meaningful. But when we look very, very, very closely and we look at the individual quantum level, like smaller than the atom, trillions of times smaller than the atom, we might no longer have something that can be described as gravity. There might not be that particular feature of the quantum world, and instead it emerges out of all of these kind of chaotic and entangled quantum overlaps. Sometimes I like to like a pointillist painting. If you're standing very far from a pointillist painting, you can say what's going on in this painting, and it's very meaningful. There are people in the park, and there's parasols, and we understand it in that way. And there's meaning in that description. But when we get very, very, very close to that painting, we see the individual dots. And those individual dots are not a painting anymore. They're not a description of a park anymore. All of that sort of falls away and is no longer fundamental, if that makes sense.
It kind of makes sense. So it almost is like when we're talking temperature and gravity, is gravity still exists in somewhat of a measurement way, but it may not be a force? Is that right?
Yeah, gravity can emerge from the collective behavior. So temperature, which you've brought up, is an excellent example. We all use temperature to describe the weather outside, to heat our baths, make our cup of tea. We're aiming for a certain temperature. But if I look at the water molecules in my bath or in my cup of tea, they don't have as a fundamental property temperature. Temperature is really the emergence of all of those water molecules operating together and all of their energies, colluding to give something that emerges on the macroscopic level to be this sense of temperature. And it's an excellent and meaningful description, but it's not actually fundamental part of the microscopic world.
Wow. I mean, so it sounds like Sir Isaac Newton getting dunked on the head by an apple, if that even happened. He can still rest easy because it kind of applies. But seeing it macro and seeing it micro at the same time, I don't know I guess that's what you do in your work, and that just blows my mind. So
yes, that's exactly it.
Jana, thank you so very much. I can't wait till you break our brain next. Yeah, anytime. And that does it for us tonight. I'm Gadi Schwartz. We'll see you tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.